Ready. So we usually do a casual start, but actually I just want to introduce Matt because Matt is one of my very good friends at school, childhood friends since school, since 7. Yeah, I remember. It's crazy because I remember so vividly our time at school together, playing in the playground, playing rugby together. Every time I see Matt, after years, every time I see him, I tell him about how big his quads were at rugby. I remember, I think we're 16, he plays a flanker. I'm like, wow, his legs are massive. Matt, how are they so big? It was ridiculous. Still in awe. But Matt, really good to see you. Matt's had a long journey. Matt is I think introduce yourself in general, what your job title is, because I don't want to screw it up.
Oh, thanks, James. Well, lovely to be on. So I'm a clinical psychologist. So I work with individuals and teams in around mental health, around stress and burnout, and amazing. Performance. That's the other part, making sure people work at their very best.
Yeah, amazing. And I think I was talking to Matt about this a lot, that basically it's really good to have a genuinely trained psychologist on here. Matt also very smart at school. I'm not just saying this. We went to good school. Matt was very, very clever at school. Went to Durham University. And you did where did you do your PhD, Matt?
So I did my doctorate in the University of Essex.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. I just want to put the qualifications out there, and I think it's relevant because people, you know what's funny actually, Matt? People sort of poo-poo qualifications, and I think it's ridiculous now, and it always comes from someone that doesn't have any. And look, there's nothing wrong with being entrepreneurial, not having a degree, etc. I still agree with that. That comes from just learning over time. But when it comes to the medical field, I think you need to be qualified. It's insane.
Absolutely.
Like a psychologist or a psychiatrist, a doctor, it's mental. It's actually insane when people sort of belittle it. And one of the things that gets pushed out there on that note, Matt, is people use the word toxic masculinity, and I don't want to say throw it out there, but it's used a lot in social media. What are your views on toxic masculinity? What does it mean, if it does mean anything, and what are your views on it?
Okay, well, I think you're right. Phrases get thrown out on social media all the time, and I think that breaking it down is really important. Toxic masculinity, I think the bit that I take from that is there is an aspect of masculinity which is about like toughing it out, not being seen as weak. I think that being strong as a man is really important. I think embracing your own individuality and asserting your goals and aspirations in life is key. The dangerous bit, which I think toxic masculinity refers to, is when men don't open up about their feelings, when men feel like they have to suppress any sense of vulnerability, and emotion gets tied with vulnerability. So you suppressed all the things you find hard in life. And that's really toxic, because what it means is you suppress, deny, and that comes out in some strange ways. It comes out in addictions, it comes out in depression, it comes out in suicide, it comes out in very unhealthy ways. That's the toxic bit for me.
Yeah, I think that any of my friends actually, Matt, I've spoken to that are people who fought, quite a few friends who fought in the UFC, a few war veterans. And funny enough, you say about suppressing emotions, Matt, what they'll do, a lot of them actually are the most open. Funnily enough, they've been to war, etc., seen the hardest of times, literally, and they are the most emotionally vulnerable. They can be open and go, I don't feel good, I'm upset about this, and they talk about things. And when they talk about it, you actually think they're more masculine. Actually, if anything, you said being open makes you stronger. It doesn't make you seem weaker. It doesn't. This is the bizarre thing. Who out there is judging men when they're open? I think there is a difference between being a mess and actually saying, look, this is really stressing me out. I'm worried about this, getting upset about something, and if anything, that is masculine. They're taking control of their emotion. That's actually masculinity in itself, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really important point in terms of mental health or anything in life, is that there's a difference between taking responsibility for yourself and also being understood as a person. So often people feel like you just need to hear me, you just need to see me. But then also as a mental health, okay, even as a psychologist, I might try and help someone. But there's an old joke in psychology. It's a really, really bad one.
Of course it's going to be.
How many psychologists does it take to fix a light bulb?
I don't know.
Only one, but the light bulb has to be ready to change.
Oh, terrible. I feel like I've been given diabetes listening to that. Oh my God.
That's now in my rotation.
The point is, you have to take responsibility for change and for yourself. That's absolutely true. But I think what you say, when you're here in a crowd, when you see people stand up, or you see someone on social media, or you meet a friend, and they open up about what they're finding really hard, and they're like, own it, and they talk about what they're finding hard, most people would look at that and go, that's a sign of strength.
They do.
That's awesome.
They do.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But when you do it for yourself, people see it as weakness. Like, I don't want to open up that thing about me that I feel like I don't want anyone to see. Those are really vulnerable, because when you show like a really true part of yourself and you let yourself up to be exposed. But the other bit that's true, if you don't let yourself be seen by others or like open up to others, you can't ever be helped. Or actually, I'd say more than that, you can't ever really connect with another human being.
You literally took the words out of my mouth. You'll never actually form real friendships or connection. People will never like you. People will never, if you don't show vulnerability, part of actually bonding with men, women, whatever it may be, is showing your vulnerable side to someone, and then they show it back to you, and then you're friends. I think the problem is people who are scared of being vulnerable, actually, if anything, so the reason, this is a psychologist, people are scared of being vulnerable, opening up, they're scared of being seen as a weirdo or weak, or being ostracized by society, right? So the issue is actually, if anything, if you're very bland and don't open up to anyone and you're overly closed off, if anything, you're not going to make any friends. I don't think you'll make any friends that way if you're overly closed off with people.
Yeah. And isn't it ironic that...
I often go back to evolutionary psychology, which is this field of psychology that looks back at how we were back in our ancestral days and go, well, why is it that we experience the things we do now? And it says a lot of that makes sense in like how we evolved and how we're designed to be in the world. So going back that way, we see some of the biggest threats to us were threat to life, threats to reproduction, passing on our DNA, and the large one. So you think, well, obviously those things are scary for us, right? If we can't find a partner, or if we can't defend ourselves, those things are really scary. But the third most important thing is being part of the group. So anything around social exclusion, around embarrassment, about cast out from the tribe, like way back when, if you were cast out from your tribe, you probably were going to die. So today we still feel that great sense of worry, and a lot of men feel this, like, I don't want to be different because what if I'm not part of the group? What if they call me out as a weirdo, like you say? It taps into a real threat we've just had a very, very long time ago. But it's still a very strong threat. Probably one of our biggest dangers as humans is social exclusion.
Yeah, it's very powerful.
I think that's very interesting, Matt. And it makes me think about this kind of toxic masculinity term, because we've talked about it a lot on the podcast and privately. And I do think it gets thrown around too much. I think it's opened up to be subjective. Like, people give their own definitions of what toxic masculinity is. But I think what you said there about being part of a group and also finding a mate, I actually think that can lead to some of these toxically masculine traits. Obviously, I'm being subjective now. I'm saying what I think it is. But you find people who aren't part of a group of, let's call it masculine males, or just males in general. They get into a relationship, but that's really their only... that's only really their socializing. They're just with their partner, right? And they don't have good male role models around them or good male peers. And so what happens is these traits start coming out of trying to be overly domineering, because these are the things that I hear most from women when they're describing toxic masculinity, is overly aggressive, overly controlling, overly domineering. And I don't know, Matt, it'd be good to get your thoughts on that. Do you think that could be, because I think that's down to not having a good peer group of other males, of other masculine males, and then just basically portraying traits that aren't genuine, if you like. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think a lot of the need for control, dominance, superiority, I think those come from some deep fears within. If you go really deep, I think they're like deep fears within that I'm not those things. Like, I'm not in control in this relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I feel like I'm inferior. I don't feel strong. I don't feel like I'm in charge. I don't feel like I have that place. So those things get enacted. They kind of come out in extremes with people they feel like they can control. And so I think that can be what you're saying. I think my version of that, which I say is a healthy thing with a group of men and guys, is that actually you get a space to jostle. There's an old thing about, jostling for jostling and jockeying for position and power.
Hierarchy.
Is like something we've done for millennia. And I think if you can find a way to do that in a healthy way, sport is an amazing way. Sport's just like a recreation of battle. It's a great way to go into it and to have that ability to be able to firstly feel capable in your body. What a great thing in life to be able to do, feel good in your body and feel capable, but also feel able to find role, meaning, purpose, control, passion, but it doesn't need to go all the way into feeling like you said, the dangerous bits of maybe the toxicity of extreme control, dominance, and aggression. If you don't have those experiences to be able to do them on a day-to-day basis, I think you're probably, I wonder what your thoughts are on things like having a group in the gym or things like contact sports.
Yeah, it's what literally. It's funny you said that, because I've just come back from training with an amazing MMA coach, probably the best MMA coach in the world, a guy called Ozzy. A lot of very, very high level fighters just going back training just before this. And when you do that, Matt, often you feel completely relaxed. And he said before, the most relaxed environment, those environments have been, in rooms with people who fight in the UFC, etc. And that's actually the most relaxed environment. And like you said before, people that feel they're in control. So have a job they enjoy, have a partner they love, they have a sport they love, a male group they can train with and jostle for position with. They're not aggressive. Exactly. They don't try and control their wife or people in control. They're not the one shouting at the waiter. They're the complete opposite. They avoid confrontation, not aggressive. Because they have control and they feel they have control in their life, they actually don't try and control other people. It's the same actually you've seen through social media, Matt. People that don't have control over their life tend to be on the things that they blast out all the stuff on social media they can't control. So it might be about whatever it may be, the flavour of the month, whatever things are coming out at the moment in mainstream media. They'll go on and on about that. I'm not saying they don't matter. However, to me, that tells me someone doesn't have control over their own life. People that are happily married, good family, good male peer group, good female friends for women, etc. As I said again, repeating the same, have a good job, they tend not to be aggressive towards people or confrontational. They tend to be the opposite, Matt. Only confrontational when they need to be.
Yeah, but that is important, and I think like the phrase, it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a wall. Like there's a sense of needing to feel strong and capable, because you're right. Like there's times in life to be driven. In terms of a model here, so there's a really great professor of psychology. He speaks about we're always in one of three emotional systems, and they kind of govern our lives. We're either in drive, go get it mode. And hopefully you've got meaning and purpose in there. This is really important. Without this, then your life's not particularly rich. You also need time to go into soothe. Soothe is not about sleep. Soothe is actually about like connecting to people, being in like having jokes, having laughter, having humor, being with your friends and family. And also threat. There's times where we need to be in a threat mode, which means like making sure like, okay, physical threats, if someone's going to attack you, you're ready to push them away. But also like, there's a lot of threats we deal with every day, so in jobs, people trying to take our positions, about threats to income and revenue, threats to job security, threats to my relationship. We need to be like on and switched on and be looking for these things. Not all the time. That's your point. We need to, and if you can find ways to get physical ways to kind of go into threat mode, you can kind of downshift through the gears, down into drive or into relaxing. And that's the thing. I find the biggest thing with men, we might talk about it later, but the biggest thing that I find my clients don't have is the skills to be able to change their arousal states, change what it feels like it's inside them, change from going from a highly adrenalized to going into relaxed going into driven and focus, and vice versa. And those are skills actually in how to do that. If you don't have those skills, you might just stay, we've all met the guy who's aggressive and pissed off at the world, and because something happened yesterday, and he's stuck there for a week. Can't change it.
I've known loads of people like that. Yeah, of course. Yeah, I see it all the time with friends. Should have told them before. They have an argument with someone, and they're angry at the whole world. They hate the whole world, and the problem that's that interaction you have with that person, and they don't seem to be able to switch through the states. And other people who are literally able to completely compartmentalize things. So, I think it does change. I know Matt will maybe tell us about the neuroscience behind this. I think it does change as you get older. So, when you're a teenager, you're much more volatile. As you get older, someone will have a fight with you. And then when you go into a professional environment, we literally do have to do it for your job, you're able to switch off and compartmentalize those two things. Is that something to do with age or learned behavior?
Probably a mix of both. The one part of the brain that doesn't fully develop until you're 25 is the very front part of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, and a very specific part of it, impulse control. So the part of our brain that modulates our behavior also negotiates risk, like should I do this or should I pull back? Also, should I have one more thing or should I stop there? So all impulse control habits. That's the very last part of our brain to develop. probably not until we're 25. So as a teenager, you're just going to take more risks. You're also going to get in more fights. You're not going to see the consequence of your actions. That's why we all make stupid decisions as teenagers. Because we have
Everyone does.
Everyone does. And it's amazing we survive. So hopefully you survive and you live to 18 or 25. But then you have a choice, right? And some people don't have people around them to help them learn how to deal with high levels of stress and how to deal with things that make you feel uncomfortable and challenged. If you don't learn those skills, you'll spend your whole life not being able to manage those skills. You have to learn them at some point. Otherwise, you're right. You're not gonna achieve what you want to in your job, in your athletic career. You're not gonna achieve the top of your game.
No, with anything, being able to control. We talk about a lot. Being able to control impulses. Mm-hmm. So Matt, something that also another thing is pushed through social media all the time, which is an issue. We talk about male mental health a lot, but statistics show that male suicide is 4 times higher than suicide in females. Why do you think the male suicide rate is so high comparatively to women?
I think it is worth saying. It is really high. I mean, it's shocking, the stats. So men are less likely to be diagnosed with depression, but 3 to 4 times more likely to die by suicide. In terms of being under 50, suicide is the leading cause of death in men in the UK.
Wow.
That's a crazy statistic.
There's a lot. I mean, I know loads. This is the thing. I know when people say the statistics higher, I know plenty of people personally have killed themselves. And I don't mean plenty. I mean plenty of. This is another thing that's super important to caveat this. Every single one of those men was highly capable, intelligent, academic, good looking, and in good shape. So this is a crazy thing. So you can't use, they're just a loser, or you know, not a horrible.
Yeah.
They had their life put together in certain ways, Matt. That's the thing. I can actually think of them on the top of my head. I don't want to name them on the podcast, not fair. But every single one was actually ticking the boxes of society, right? So why do you think, and it actually tends to be a lot of people that are highly capable that kill themselves. Why do you think that is? Celebrities, say they're good looking, have plenty of money, and seem happy from the outside. Why do you think depression even seems to be higher among those people? What do you think that could be to do with?
So I think the suicide part of it is that there's a great fear in failure, a fear in weakness, and a fear in that vulnerability bit we spoke about before. So what happens is you start to, so in that sense, if I can't open up, I'll start to isolate and withdraw more. And the more that you start to isolate and withdraw by not telling people, not opening up, actually what happens is you start to self-deceive as well. So you start to tell yourself lies that actually this is so bad, I can't talk about this thing. And what happens in that cycle is there's a huge shame cycle that builds up when you hold things inside. And shame is this thing inside us. It's a powerful emotion that inhibits us from changing our behavior or opening up. It's different than blame, by the way. Blame is I did something wrong. Shame is I am wrong. So blame is a really good thing. If you feel like guilt, I messed up. Yep. Shit, I shouldn't have done that thing. Mm-hmm. Great. It's usually a really good thing for telling us, well, I better not do that again.
Take responsibility.
That's really bad. Shame, I am something wrong. What it means is we start to mask, hide, suppress. And that is really dangerous because what you deny, you amplify. With our emotions, what we deny and inhibit comes out and amplifies. Maybe in ruminative thoughts, you can't stop thinking about the thing you don't want to stop thinking about. Or the powerful emotions come out in really uncomfortably bodily reactions. You start to feel panicky, your body feels uncomfortable. Every time you do something, you put another layer of mask on because you don't want people to see. And eventually what becomes is it becomes the gap between now I've got something inside that's so big and unbearable, I just can't open that up or reach that out to other people.
Matt, that's so powerful. Sorry to interrupt, this really it's so powerful because, sorry to interrupt you, but actually every single one, I was going to the next point, every single one of the people I knew that have killed themselves, Matt, people go, I never knew. Every single one of them. It's because of what you just said.
And that's the danger. And that's why men more than women are more likely to die by suicide, is that women learn, binary terms, but women learn through social exchange growing up that we play by talking. And men usually play by doing alongside.
Wrestling
that's
or
right?
Games, right?
So exactly, through games, exactly. So women tend to build up the ability to talk about the difficult stuff. And men often don't. So it's not uncommon. I actually appreciate I'm probably someone that talks more about their feelings than most men. But sometimes I come back with old friends and my wife will be like, "Oh, how's X? What's going on with their life? How's their partner? What's going on?" I go, "Oh, do you know what? We just went for a drink. We didn't talk about stuff."
It's so
How
true.
did you not talk about that stuff?
So true.
We don't always. And I think the danger is that men don't talk about and don't open up. And that's it. If you don't have a way to talk about it, it feels like you're alone. And that's why, for me, actually, and you might then go into avoidance tactics or suppression tactics. So addiction, drug and coping. You might get into more dangerous or insipid behaviors. You might go online and gamble all your money and get into debt and try and get into trouble. Or you might have an affair and avoid and find some satisfaction that way. And then it all feels too much. And then it just feels the only way is to escape. And the ultimate escape is via death.
Wow.
And I would say that the most important thing in all of that is that one of the big fears that supporting people have is if I talk about suicide to them, or if I talk about suicide to someone I'm worried about, then it might put the idea in their head.
Yes.
All the evidence and research, all the great kind of organizations out there that have trainings on this, the opposite's completely true. You cannot put the idea in someone's head. By talking directly about it, you might prevent that very thing from happening.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is, isn't it?
It's really important to get that message out there, because that is something that everybody thinks. You don't want to mention it to your friends. If you think they're on the edge, you don't want to say that to them. You're scared of putting that idea in their head. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So do you think the reason that kind of depression diagnoses are lower is for that reason, is because men are very conscious about, even admitting that they're low, that they're feeling depressed, that potentially even feeling suicidal? Because something we'll come on to is because the stats are there that more women are being diagnosed with depression, despite men having a higher rate of suicide. So we'll get on to what the difference is of treating that. But, fundamentally, do you think the reason that the stats are the way they are is because men aren't talking about it?
I think there's two things at play. I think one is that men aren't talking about it, admitting it, and then opening up about it. That's one part of it. I think the other bit is that men might look different in men. Depression might look different in men than women. So, whereas women, again, broad brushstrokes, but women may tend to internalize their depression. So it comes up with sadness, guilt, self-blame. Men might externalize more in their behaviors. So what you might see is not typical sadness when you're thinking about someone be depressed. It might be instead avoidance, or it might be, like I said, like alcoholism. It might look like gambling, addictive behaviors. It might be social withdrawal, but it might even be anger and aggression and irritability, which would be like, well, they're not depressed, they're full of energy. So it might not be the sadness that we're talking about. It might look very different. So then when they go to a doctor, or if anyone even thinks about them going to see a doctor, it might be they've just got bad personality. They may not get the diagnosis of depression, because the way that a psychiatrist or a GP is going to find out what the diagnosis is through a list of medical categories, and they find the most appropriate list of bullet points that fit the presentation you're coming with. And depression, you're more likely to get it if you're fitting that kind of low mood, so you're feeling sad, and you're less active, you're withdrawn, and you're not doing very much, and your life is very restricted. You get those tics. If you're more angry, irritable, because you don't find you've got a sense of meaning in your life, and because it comes out in other ways, you're less likely to get the diagnosis.
But I think a lot of men, the problem is, I'm laughing because it's so true in them. Literally, the usual thing would be, how are you feeling, mate? And they're like, yeah, great. Better than, I've done it, but everyone's done it before. Every guy, I'm sure you've done it, Matt.
It's the stock answer, isn't it? I'm good.
Yeah, I'm great, literally. Wife has just died from bone cancer, literally. Child is drowned in a lake. It's like, yeah, better than ever. The same with health, right? Physical health is the way to describe it. I love this, but with men, literally, if you have an ailment, say crude, but going to the toilet and seeing blood, whatever it is, and then what happens is you avoid going to the doctor, and then eventually you're like, well, it's carried on, but I'm not dead, so it can't be that bad. It's been there for 3 years now. It can't be that serious because I'm not dead yet. So men are like, it's terrible.
Yeah. we're full of all these biases, aren't we? Like, yeah, it's not me, it's someone else, or it's not really that bad.
It's not really
And
that
I
bad.
think or even, isn't this what life feels like? Might be
Yes.
another bias. You might be like, what, you don't feel like crap every day. Your body
so
doesn't
true.
hurt and your mind doesn't race. You don't overthink about everything, or you don't feel like life's hopeless and there's no point to living. That's not your sense of reality.
It's
If you don't
so
talk,
true,
how
man.
are you going to know?
It's so true, isn't it? Men normalise everything, literally.
Yeah.
It's not normal to literally not want to wake up in the morning. It's not. I thought it was going to be normal to have suicidal thoughts, but it's true. It's normal. Same with health, right? We're joking, but health. It's normal to be exhausted all the time. It's normal to cry myself to sleep. So I've heard, but but
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
men normalise it. Yeah, they really, really do.
Yeah, and that thing you said about like I'm fine. It's a really clever strategy if you don't want people to really know, because like we know we use it all the time, but what it really says implicitly is don't ask any more questions.
Yeah,
Like
it does,
that's what it
doesn't it?
does, doesn't it? It says I'm fine. You go, okay, they're not showing me they need anything more than that. So I probably won't ask any more questions. And it's a really effective way when we say, yeah, I'm fine, yeah, all good. Most of us don't really know what to do after that. So most of my sessions start with a very realistic check-in. We have different, and it's never how are you, how we start a session, because actually most of the guys I see, we need to get under that. And we need to really, one is like getting underneath that. The second is teaching someone to really know what's going on. Like maybe, like in the gym when you work with people and you might be training them, like when you really want them to really load their muscles properly, you have to train them to like, what does it actually feel like in your body?
Yeah,
So
to failure. What it feels like. Yeah.
What
You
does
need
it
to
feel like?
experience
So
it,
there's a term called interoception. So interoception is our ability to tune into the sensations in our body. So you need that for working out or for like a very specific muscular move, but also you need that for emotions, because all our emotions start with, they're just sensations in our body. You go, oh, that feeling in my chest. Very quickly, I know if I feel that in my chest, that's anxiety. But I've had to work that out over the years. And so when you ask someone how you're feeling, they might be like, yeah, I'm fine. But they're completely disconnected from their whole body of being like, everything aches, I feel like shit. And
So true.
that is part of the work, is training people to recognize you're not a head, you're not just a brain. You're a person with a whole body. And that body gives us a lot of information.
With Matt, so something that people always talk about is another. I always say on social media, it's relevant because people ask. If on social media, people obviously are interested in Matt, and I've got a lot of people asking me to ask you this, Dr. Matt. So, is there a difference in treatment of depression for men versus women?
Okay, the big difference is firstly how it's sold. That's the big difference. So men typically go for treatment for depression, which is action oriented and goal focused. Women typically are more curious and engage in therapies that are more emotion focused in language. So how I speak about, if you go into my Instagram thread, you'll see that based on my knowledge and research, the way I speak about support is much around skill focus, around goal oriented, or action oriented is probably a better way to say it, value driven work. Because like even in the NHS, I think the stats are that it's only 36% of people using therapy in the NHS are men. So most men don't, because it's sold as something that's not true for them. It's not how they deal with stuff. So I think the selling is a big thing. How it's different for men and women as well, like language is a huge part of it. We're going to talk through language around your armor and your inner world and how you push through, as opposed to just gentle, soft, flowing, maybe emotion-based language. Wow. That's something that I'll start with, that kind of language. And then we've got to train men in how to do three things. So the big things they need to catch up on that women maybe don't have is, first of all, they need to take action. We all know that. You need meaning and purpose. Absolutely key. We're going to find how you do meaning and purpose, but what gets in the way of that? Anxiety, depression, unhelpful habits. First of all, is men need to learn two key skills. And that's, one is thought management. What is going on my head at any which moment in time? And how do I manage those thoughts? And secondly, emotion management. What's going on in my body and what do I need to do? Once you learn that, then strategies are great. Before that, you can read all the strategies on the internet, but if you don't know why you're doing it and when to do it, a strategy is useless, isn't it?
It's the same with an example, Dr. Matt, would be where someone will have you go on the internet and you literally find out all these exercises, how to bench press, how to deadlift, but actually you need someone who's trained to be able to put a program together for you. It's exactly the same thing. Reading all these strategies on the internet aren't going to help unless you have someone medically trained to actually put the strategy together.
Mm.
Exactly, and if it's like a bench press, and like they do a bench press completely poor technique, or they don't know why they're doing it.
Exactly,
like,
they need to start with the basics, right?
That's the worst thing for you right now. You need to be building these stability muscles. You need to be working on a completely different body part. People don't know that it's very, very hard for you to know what you need unless you have someone else really help you work it out. And so one of the big things I talk about a lot is our blind spots. So like, do you know, like driving a car?
Yes.
You've got a blind spot. Where's your blind spot? Is it far away or close to you, your blind spot?
Well, again, you can't really see because you're a blind spot, right?
Exactly. You can't see it because it's right next, because it's like...
Oh, it's close, isn't it? I remember that's close, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The blind spot, the danger is you can't see it because it's right next to your door. And so that's the hardest thing for us to see as human beings. Our blind spots are, we're unable to see the things we're unable to see. So like you need someone else, you need a trainer, you need a coach, you need a psychologist to help point out these things that's so obvious for everyone else to see sometimes, but you just can't see it yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why having a support figure, it's why having in sport, how great is it to have a coach? Like it's such a great thing in life to grow up with the mentality of having a coach who knows more than you, who can see things 1,000 times and just helps you be the best version of yourself. That's a great thing in life.
Yeah, that's the best.
A lot of men struggle with it, like whether it's from an ego perspective or feeling inferior and wanting to reach out to a coach. You know, we deal with this. And Matt, I know that you coach high performers, as do we. So, yeah, I guess the first step is those people being comfortable enough to reach out and get a coach. But then what would be some strategies that you use, particularly for high performers? Because earlier on you mentioned about people living with stress and not even registering potentially. I think we've seen it a lot, you know, high performers almost wearing stress like a badge of honor.
They love it.
They're almost habituated to it.
Yeah. Getting lack of sleep is seen as good.
Yeah.
Saying I'm stressed, they go, that's a good thing. I like being stressed. And they almost love being stressed.
Yeah,
They
keeps
feel
me sharp.
Keeps you sharp. No, it's true. So what's the biggest mistake a lot of high-end performers do? And because we both know, you as a psychologist, we talk about this a lot, high-end performers actually they look after their mental and physical well-being, they'll actually be earning more money, doing better. So how do you slow someone like that down and make them realize actually performing at your best is also looking after your mental and physical health?
Yeah, that is absolutely key. I think the first thing in helping someone do that is to have the real honest start of conversation around how it's not helping them. And so the first thing, so clinical psychologists, first thing we do is that we talk with someone for a while to build up a formulation. A formulation, I literally draw out a diagram of you and I will draw out how all these things are interplaying your unhelpful behaviors, your helpful behaviors, all focused on the thing that you want to change in your life. I'm going to draw out why you're not unable to get yourself out of it. And that then gives us strategies out. And so that is often the buy-in, is not convincing someone that what I say is better than what you say, because that's the thing high performers are not going to enjoy at all, because they should know best. What they're going to like is we're going to work this problem. We have a problem, and what I say to them is, it's like, we can only fix a problem if we really understand it first. So that's what we're going to do. We'll start by really trying to understand this problem. And in that, we're going to work out why neglecting your mental health, your physical health is an issue, why that overthinking is causing an issue, why wearing stress as a badge of honor is actually leading to a cycle of lack of sleep, over worry and rumination, not feeling fresh in the morning, feeling ill-prepared to deal with the day ahead. We're going to draw these things out in vicious circles and maintaining factors, which then gives us strategies. And that's how we'll work on it. Because a lot of high performers, they need that. And a lot of high performers, I find, actually, they like expertise. Because why would you not if you're a high performer?
They love it. Coaches, they love it.
Yeah. So a lot of the guys, a lot of the most successful men that I work with, are really, really lean into this work. But they need to, but in my experience, it starts out with this real collaboration. Why are you stuck with the things that you feel you're stuck with? And where are the areas you want to grow? And why aren't you there already? Because we'll work that out. If you aren't there already, if it's something about mindset, something about your relationships, something about the things that are keeping you stuck, let's be really accountable about that and honest about that. Then, most people, especially high performers, they're clever people. So once we highlight and work out the problem areas, that's really my job, then they figure things out for themselves and I'll guide them along the way. Then we'll do breathwork strategies, we'll do emotion regulation strategies, we'll do thought management, we'll do sleep hygiene, we might work on how to really focus your mindset and how to go into how to get into good flow states and make sure your working week is designed well for you, how to do those kind of things. But the first bit, the most important bit, is that shared understanding thing and getting someone on board with you. 100%.
That's incredible, Matt. And I wanted to ask you on that note, what are the key pillars for, I don't want to say happiness, what are the key pillars for having good quality mental health and happiness, both of them? What are the key pillars you put in place? What are the things you would say for someone to do?
Okay, I say meaning and purpose, social connection, physical activity and well-being, and rest and recovery. Let's go simple. Those things I'd say are my top tips.
Yeah, I think a lot of high-end performers, and that's why I think we're smiling at the last one, a lot of high-end performers would agree with all of them. And they would agree with them, the rest and recovery, but then they won't do it. How do you get someone, high-end performer, who's very, very red personality? Because I know myself, I'm not saying high-end performer, I mean, I'm very, very forward-leaning. So how do I make myself realise taking a step back and having rest and recovery will allow me to go forward-leaning for longer?
I think knowledge is power. So talking things through and sharing some of the data, the science, the research about why it's beneficial, I think is really key. But then thinking, what does rest look like for that person? Because rest looks different, right? So some people say rest is like sleep or completely switched off. That doesn't need to be rest. You might have physical rest. You might have social rest. You might have creative rest. There's lots of different things you can do, which is all about changing the gears and like going down through the dials to go into a more restful, less stressful state. But you could be doing hobbies, passions, interests, connecting with friends. You're going for a walk. You could spend time in nature. You could be learning a new skill, definitely exercising. All of those things count as rest if you do them in a restful way. It doesn't just have to be inaction. And that's the major crux, is most people think rest is inactivity and not doing. Whereas what we're trying to say is, no, rest is the doing thing we want you to do more of.
It's the catalyst for progress, right?
Yeah. I was saying about spending...
Say that again, Mike. That was lovely. What did you say?
I said it's the catalyst for progress. Sorry, I'm probably a little bit quiet at this distance, but yeah. I was saying rest and recovery is the catalyst for progress. And I think all of us, like coaching high performers, we will all admit that that's one of the things that they struggle with the most. And so something that I talk to people about is the impact on, particularly men, the impact on testosterone, information retention, concentration, and then physical attributes as well. Of course, that testosterone is critical for. But yeah, I think that's the kind of overriding one where they'll find a reason not to do it, and that kind of leads us on nicely, Dr. Matt, to the why or obviously we feel, and I'm sure you agree, Matt, that physical health is a very important determinant of mental health, right?
How are they linked?
Yeah,
you say? How are mental health and physical health linked? And can you have good mental health without good physical health?
I think it'd be very hard to have good mental health without good physical health, or vice versa. I think one of the dangers is that we even talk about them as separate things. And that is a danger, because a bit of history, maybe history is good. I don't know if you like history, but but back in back in the Renaissance, René Descartes, he talked about like we needed to separate the mind and body. And he did really good things back in the day in advancing science, and that's what happened from the 17th century onwards. But the danger was, from that point, everything's been divided. You go to your doctor for your body, you go to the psychiatrist for your head, you go to the physio for your muscles, everything is separate. And that's just not who we are.
No.
So most advances now have shown us that stress is not really held in your head. It's held literally in your body, stress and trauma. It's a bodily thing. So that's why actually most therapies now, the ones that I do, they're not always talking therapies. The most effective things for stress and trauma are neurophysiological therapies. They change your nervous system and rewire it away from stress and trauma. So that whole paradox is that mental health and physical health is just not helpful. So yeah, you've got to look after your physical health. Absolutely. How are they linked? Well, a lot of people are in bad shape because they just feel that bad mental health because they feel rotten every day. Like they ache, they hurt, their body doesn't feel good. The thing about doing exercise, if it's something you can enjoy too, is that you get all the endorphin released afterwards, which are a natural there are chemicals of feeling like on a high. They make us feel great. The other thing, it's not just a hormonal thing. If you've worked out and you're working towards a goal, you're driven with purpose and meaning, and you're working towards it, you get a motivational feedback loop, which shows you I've got a drive, I have worked hard, I've achieved something, and the most important bit about that is it confirms beliefs about oneself that are positive and affirming. I can do this. I'm capable of change. I'm the master of my own destiny. I can make things happen in my life. The trouble is when you don't look after your body, you're not pushing yourself, you can feel as though, well, I don't work hard, I don't get that reward from my body, and therefore I don't feel capable, I don't feel active, I don't feel like I get this sense of achievement.
Well, it's literally the feedback of if I put work in consistently, I get good feedback back. So if I consistently eat well and train, I look better and feel better. And that is in everything in life. So you're building a business. If I just consistently work hard, doing the correct things again and again, I earn more money. And that's with everything. Say with my marriage, right? If I'm in a marriage and I literally work hard on my marriage and communicate with my wife and talk about things, I'll have a better marriage. And also another really important thing with building a body, right? Same with a business and with a marriage, it's not linear. It's not a linear process. You have setbacks, but then you learn from having a setback and then working through the setback. You believe you can work through setbacks. And the more times you do that again and again, the more times you work through more difficult times because you believe in yourself that you can work through difficult times. If you don't believe in that and you haven't worked through something difficult, what proof do you have to yourself that you actually can work through those times?
Oh, that's amazing. I see the opposite of that a lot, is that I see a lot of men who fear failure and who doubt their ability. So how that shows up in terms of mental health is that they might find themselves mentally rehearsing situations a lot, going out and doing a pitch, or having a difficult conflict, having an argument with your wife or with your friends, or trying to negotiate a deal and having to rehearse it a lot, which means they're doubting their ability that when they get there, they'll be able to perform, or even athletic. That's what I do with my athletes, is they doubt their ability fully to know when I show up, I can perform. So they spend too much time mentally rehearsing. The technical term is rumination, but it shows up as anxiety and worry. Anxiety, worry, and stress, as you said before, they'll hinder performance. Unless they're harnessed, they're going to take away all your physical ability. They're going to not make you rest. You're not going to have you tell me the physical attributes that it's not going to give you, but it's definitely going to take away from your physical performance. And that is key. So like having experiences of like physicality, learning. I'm so lucky, James, I don't know about you, Mike, but James and I had the upbringings where we'd thrown into sport from an early age.
Yeah, right. Yeah, loads of rugby.
I feel like that's something I can hang on to always, that I've always got sport. I've always got that thing that's shown me I can train and get better. Like it's a really great feedback, isn't it? Like you put the work in, you literally see the benefits. It's harder to see that in other areas of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very linear. Mm-hmm. It's actually, one of your favourites, Matt, Dr. Matt, we talked about a lot, is Simon Sinek.
Yes.
I love. I have to put this in the podcast. But super important thing is Simon Sinek said, who's a coach in the US, very very wealthy entrepreneur. And what he does, trains people in mindset. I'm really glad that Dr. Matt loves him as well. One of the things he said, Dr. Matt, was, if you go to the gym, you come back from the gym, you look in the mirror, and you see nothing. You go to the gym the next day, you train very hard, sweating. You look in the gym, so you look back in the mirror, and you see nothing. And you do that for 3 weeks, you might see nothing. But then if you do that every day for a year, you look like a different person. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem. People aren't willing to consistently put in the work. But the beautiful thing about the gym more than anything, it's very linear. Mm-hmm. It's very linear. You put the work in consistently, correctly, you'll get an outcome. And people aren't willing to put the work in consistently without seeing instantaneous results. So quite often, Matt, what they'll do is look for something that gives them a quick hit. So it might be drugs, having sex with some random girl. They feel good in the moment, but then afterwards they feel low. But there's nothing better than actually achieving something that's taken a long time. That gives you that warm feeling. Like as I said before, a good marriage. It might be building a business to turning over 3 million a year, whatever it may be. That genuinely makes you feel good because you know it's taken a long time. Things that tend to give you a quick hit tend to make you less happy long term.
Yeah, and they're literally chemical corresponders to that. So lots of people chase the quick fix, the dopamine. There's a lot of chat about dopamine now as a hormone. But those other things about feeling good about yourself and feeling good in relationships and safe and settled and warm and fuzzy and like those other feelings which are important too, they're different chemicals, so serotonin, oxytocin, and then working out and getting a really good high from the gym, endorphins. So all these different chemicals are important for well-being. All of them are important. But you're right, just chasing one thing, and particularly quick fixes, can lead to very unhelpful behaviors. Yeah. Like the addictive qualities of dopamine and the reward-based. So dopamine is all about reward, or imagined reward, actually. It's not even that you get the reward, it's just that you think you're going to get the reward. That's where you get dopamine.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's that thing, the actual feeling of doing it. Yeah.
Yeah, like the studies say, if you're going to go do a marathon and you start telling everyone you've done the marathon before you've done it, you get this, every time you tell that story, you get less dopamine, and actually you're going to get lesser reward when you finish the marathon. The studies show people have experienced much less reward if they're told people already, because they've kind of had the hit already. So if if you're going to achieve something big like that and you really want to feel good about what you did, don't talk so much, do it.
yeah, to actually do the action. That's the kind of people that jump from thing to thing because they get the quick dopamine of telling all the sort of like, it's like the pornographic thing, watching porn. It's like the imagination is better than the actual act. So what happens is it's like a quick fix feeling of literally like, I'm going to do this thing. And then when they get bored of that, I'm going to do this thing, they jump to something else and they switch from thing to thing to get a quick dopamine hit again.
Yeah.
Novelty, basically.
Short-term gratification, right?
And as trainers, how do you get people to stay consistent? What works? Because this is the mind and body is the same thing. How do you do this? How do you keep them consistent?
You give them a mixture. You give them short-term goals and long-term goals, I think.
Or the threat of violence.
The threat of violence. I'm feeling stronger than you. A direct debit.
Yeah, the prize point. Sorry, you were.
I was just gonna. Right, I think we've run out of time anyway. But that was a good time. Talking about threatening our clients always a good way to.
That's a good. But Matt, that was amazing. Thank you so much for that. It was brilliant. Some really powerful stuff in there that I think our viewers are going to take a lot from.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
How can they contact you, Dr. Matt?
Okay, so if you go through my Instagram or my social media handles, it's the.burnout.psychologist. Or if you Google my name, Dr. Matt Slavin, I'm all over the internet, you'll find me.
Fantastic. Brilliant.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Lovely to be on.